Welcome to another video from Warwickshire Walks and beyond. So in this walk today we're going to take White Bridge, which we've explored on previous videos. We're going to take White Bridge as our starting point, and I'm going to take you in the opposite direction and heading towards Cubbington. I'm a bit time limited today, so I'm not quite sure how far we'll get, but we should at least get through Bob's field, Bob being the chestnut horse that I've spoken about in previous videos. But initially, just to start off today, just thought I'd show you this. So this is the wildflower meadow that has featured in some of my more recent videos. This is on the Newbold Comyn nature reserve in Leamington Spa. So a few weeks ago this was an absolute blaze of colour. Obviously the UK has so far undergone about 3 heat waves in the last 8 weeks. Believe it or not, we are still in a heat wave. I know the sky doesn't look like it, and it is a lot cooler today. We've had a brief respite from the heat wave yesterday and today, and then we've had a bit of cloud cover early in the mornings, which is why I'm kind of out a little bit earlier today to take a walk while it's cool. But the heat wave is set to continue, I think, from tomorrow onwards. So we will see. But as you can see, the effects of the heat wave has been to essentially yellow the entire field. There is still quite a bit of wildlife, certainly in terms of insect life. The camera's probably not picking it up, but I can hear lots and lots of crickets in the field. So anyway, today is Tuesday the 14th of July 2026. I'm going to stop recording briefly, and next time you see me I will be at White Bridge, and we will continue our walk from there. Sorry, I'm back with you sooner than expected, so I'm not quite at White Bridge yet. I've got another couple of fields to go, but I just thought I would show you this. So this, there's something about a crop field like this. Excuse the ignorance, I'm not sure whether this is corn or wheat or even some other type of crop grass. But even on a grey day like this, I just find this absolutely stunning. And like an idiot, I have not brought my cameras with me, which I'm deeply regretting, because I'd get some really nice photos from this field. Very evocative, I think, to have a trail through a field like this. To my mind, this crop isn't as high as it has been in previous years, but as I said, this is coming from a completely non-agricultural, non-farmer's point of view. I have no expertise in the field, no pun intended, but I am very aware we've had precious little rainfall this year in the UK. Certainly very small amounts compared to previous year and compared to what would be considered the norm, I think. So I have no doubt that's had a bearing on crop yield in the country. And although all the sunshine's been lovely, without rain I imagine it does rather constrain the efficacy of farming. Nevertheless, this is a very pretty view. So that's the way we've just come. If you follow the trail that way, you can. There's a little gap in the hedge where you can dip through. There's a little plank type bridge over a very small ditch, and that takes you back to Newbold Comyn. Pedley's Wood, if you're interested, is that line of trees that you can see there. Up ahead of us, just to orientate you, we have Eden Court Flats, so that denotes where Leamington is. And the building just before that, on the other side of the field, is Offchurch Polo Club, I think. That's what I've always thought of it as. Certainly they have lots of horses there, and there seems to be paddocks and stuff. And I'm pretty sure they own a lot of the private land, which is beyond the tree line that you can see beyond the hedge there. Today though, enough waffle. We're going to continue on this trail. and I promise you, next time you see me, we will be at Whitebridge, and that will be the start of the walk proper. Welcome back to the video. We're now at Whitebridge, where we're going to start our walk, and I'm trying to move quietly and talk quietly. I don't know whether the camera will pick this up, but I think we have an egret in the Leam. Hoping you're getting this on the zoom. And now I'm doubly annoyed that I have not brought my photography equipment with me today, because that would make a really nice photograph. Whenever I come here with my stills cameras, I never ever see this egret, and I'm pretty sure he's fairly local and he comes here every year. Let's just see how far we can get, because he doesn't seem to be wanting to take flight at the moment, which is good. So I might not be able to get him on my stills cameras, but sorry, I'm having to watch where I'm standing, which does not lend itself to great camera work. So he's obviously wading off down there. Amazing. What a nice thing to see. So this is Whitebridge. So this is going to be our starting point really for our little wander this morning. You can watch my previous videos to see how to get here. If you're local to Leamington Spa, this route is probably known to you. If you're not, do check out my previous videos. This is very easy to get to. It is not a difficult walk. There's some nice parking at Newbold Leisure Centre, or just beyond it. Newbold Comyn itself also has a parking spot as well, and you can park there for free. Again, I've discussed this in previous videos. So in previous videos, we've kind of started here and we've headed over the bridge and we've wandered in that direction, and we've ended up walking to Offchurch. Today we're going to take a different direction, and we're going to head back this way and head part of the way to Cubbington. Cubbington I've mentioned in previous videos, Leamington I've mentioned in this video. So Leamington and Cubbington, they were originally their own separate village. They would have their own separate identity outside of Leamington Spa, and as is the way with the modern world, bigger towns kind of get bigger, they end up sprawling, they end up encroaching into the boundaries of smaller villages, and these smaller villages usually get swallowed up by the bigger town. So technically all of this is Leamington Spa. However, Cubbington and Leamington have a long separate history of their own, and they certainly have a different feel to them from the main town of Leamington Spa. So today we're going to walk part of the way, as I said, to Cubbington from Whitebridge. I don't think I'm going to get all the way to Cubbington today. As I said, I'm on the clock a little bit today, so I don't have as much time as I would like. However, I do like to fit in a nice gentle walk. As mentioned in previous videos, I'm still suffering from a condition related to pre-diabetes, which is hampering my ability to do longer walks or any kind of more strenuous activity. But I'm very aware, certainly for my own mental health, let alone my physical health, that I do need to be getting a certain amount of exercise. Otherwise, at the end of this, I'm likely to look like a blimp, which I'd really rather didn't happen. It's not a good look for me. So this is a little bit of gentle exercise. It also explains why a lot of my more recent videos have all kind of been Leamington centric. This is the quickest, easiest place for me to get to. The benefits, I think, because I don't normally do this, I normally dot about all over the county, shooting different videos, but the advantage, I suppose, of being Leamington centric on these last batch of videos is seeing how the environment is changing due to prevailing weather conditions. And as I said, we've had 3 heat waves here in the UK over the last 8 weeks. Last time I came into this field, it was lush and green. As you can see, just from the constant heat and no rainfall, the grass has degraded significantly, and it does feel and sound like I am walking through hay. It's very, very dry underfoot. And despite the what appear to be rain clouds up above us, no rain is forecast. And I think even were these clouds to lose their moisture, I don't think it would be significant enough to reverse the yellowing of these fields. I think that's going to take a little bit more significant rainfall. Great thing about grass, of course, is it's very, very hardy. It's very resilient. And once we do get some rainfall later in the year, hopefully sooner than that, it will recover very, very quickly. So once you get to this point, there is a gate to your right, which you can probably see. This is private land on the right. You don't have any access through there. I'm pretty certain this land here is owned by Offchurch Polo Club that we looked at earlier, which is a shame. I'd love to get into this field. That's a beautiful willow tree. I think there's some sort of little weir there, which I'm not sure you can make out, but the lem kind of runs that way. And in fact you can see there are some horses in the fields up there, and the ubiquitous Eden Court Flats on the horizon, kind of denoting the outlying edges of Leamington. What we're going to do though is go over this sty here. Do you say sty? Do you say stile? I find the two completely interchangeable. I have to say, this one is rather wobbly underfoot. And as you can see, there's a clearly denoted trail that you can follow around the edge of the field. Generally, the rule is if you are going through farm fields, stick to the edges. There will be areas like this where the soil is compacted and hasn't been sown. But conversely as well, as you see on my right, there has been some effort to maintain that and keep it kind of cut back and chopped. So I do quite like the fact that, because I think farms sometimes get a bad reputation. You know, the common perception is farmers are always like, get off my land. But actually, a lot of the time they do work with the communities. They're obviously providing food for the community. And I don't think you could do farming without having a love for the countryside and an appreciation of it. And therefore, by extension, you must surely appreciate that there are other people who love it too and want to get access to it. And I said a lot of farms and farmers do maintain these public rights of way, which is an absolute blessing, I think, really something that we ought to value more highly than we do. Just looking at some of the wildflowers in the verge there, rather handsome looking thistle. I really should have brought my stills camera. I am going to regret not doing this. But having said that, for those of you that are also into photography, are you a little bit like me? Do you constantly have a backlog of about 400, 500 photos that you're kind of slowly working your way through and editing? And no sooner do you kind of finish a batch of them, then you've already been out and taken a load more and just added to it. I seem to have a constant workflow of photos that I'm editing, and that's not really a complaint. It just means sometimes I take some photos, I'm really excited about them, but it might take me a month before I actually see them from an editing perspective. And sometimes it's actually, you get a nice surprise sometimes. You kind of look back at stuff, think, oh, I've forgotten I'd taken that. I was with my partner over the weekend and I managed to get some photos that I'm very pleased with. Got some inset life. I gave my macro lens a go. Got some really nice shots of bees, a ruddy darter, and also a grasshopper as well, which I was really pleased with. So who knows, once I've finally got those under my nose to edit, I may even post them on a video on this channel. When I first started this channel, I did regularly, once a month, post a little photo reel of photos that I'd taken on my walks. But I have to say they didn't particularly do well in terms of viewings. So I think after about 12 months, I kind of knocked that on the head. But the original batch that I did are all there on the channel, and should be searchable if you are so minded to have a look at them. So at this point, there's another sty here, or is it just an open gate? Let's have a look. It's been a while since I've walked this route. It is actually just open, so we can just push through. So this area is looking a lot more green. Got a lot more thistles and brambles who, even in heat waves, seem to thrive. Now, I don't know whether you can see this, but up ahead I can already see Bob's field. So what's going to happen is when we get to the end of this field, there is a gate up there. At that point, you're in a bit of a grey area, as the land mostly to your right, to your left, and to a degree ahead of you is private property. It is owned by Offchurch Polo Club, but there is a public right of way that is maintained through. So provided you don't go wandering and you are respectful, you are allowed to walk through Bob's field. It's a route I've taken many times, and I was going to say Bob is lovely, and Bob is lovely, but he also really doesn't give a damn about other people. Sometimes he'll let you have a bit of fuss, other times he just totally ignores you and he's just doing his own thing. So that way, private, that takes you into the grounds of Offchurch Polo Club. This way is also private, as is clearly signposted as well, so you have no excuse for wandering onto that land there. Do not do it. But as you can see, there is a small stile here, and Bob is always in this field. So just be mindful, this is Bob's field. Please be respectful. There's a lot of horse manure around as well, so even if you can't see Bob, seeing all the horse manure is a clear sign that there is a horse in this field. Hello, Bob. Hello, darling. Hey. Hello. Sorry, bad camera work again, but I've just got to have a stroke at Bob. Beautiful horse. Hello, Bob. Oh, always getting bothered by the flies though, aren't you, my darling? Right, let's leave Bob in peace because he's having his breakfast. So as you can see, Bob is very friendly. Won't cause you any problems or any difficulties, provided you don't cause him any. This is Bob's field. I've had a conversation with one of the managers of Offchurch Polo Club a couple of years ago, who told me Bob's name. That's how I know it is Bob. It's not something that I've christened him. And I've always thought of this since then as Bob's field. So that's back the way we've come. 9 times out of 10 on a really sunny day, Bob will be just scratching himself against that fence there, trying to keep cool and getting very annoyed by the amount of flies that plague him. So the only real danger with walking through this field is not looking where you're going and stepping in that. I was going to say, for those of you that cultivate roses, of course horse manure traditionally is one of the best things you can put on them, but technically I'm not sure you can actually just help yourself to the muck from Bob's field. Different if it's out on the street, of course, but this technically is private property, so I think anything in this field does belong to Offchurch Polo Club. That said, if you want to grab a handful of this, there's no one around to see you do it, I don't think anyone is going to stop you. What I tend to find is there always seems to be a pile of horse manure either directly in front of one or even both of the styles. And in my head, I'm not sure whether that is just Bob having a bit of a sense of humour, or whether indeed it's kind of been moved there as a bit of a warning sign for people to be aware that there is a horse in this field. Now from here, there are two routes you can go on to continue a walk. In fact, there's three really. So the first and most obvious, which is not the one we're going to take today, is just to follow this lane. Follow it as far as it will go. You eventually come to a T-junction right at the top, and you're essentially on the Black Lane in Leamington at that point. You can either follow it left all the way into Leamington Spa town centre, or you can follow it right at that T-junction and literally head towards Eden Court Flats and you are in Leamington. You can also, although it's probably not clearly denoted, so that's Offchurch Polo Club. You can see it's gated and fenced off, but if you stay on this side of their fence and head that way across the fields, you can get back to Newbold Comyn from that point as well. What we're going to do today, however, is strike out from the style from Bob's field, and we're going to strike out right across this field. Again, you can see that there is a path. This is a public right-of-way. It's been a public right-of-way for God knows how many years, and it is maintained by the farmers that maintain this field. So you can clearly see where you need to go. It's not too difficult. There are times, I have to say, this is the first time I've seen this type of crop in this field. For the last few years, it's usually been oilseed rape, and by this point it's absolutely huge and encroaching onto the path, and you normally have to fight your way through it. This is the first year of walking this route that is actually relatively clear and easy to walk and navigate. Sorry, excuse me, just turning my phone on to silent. One of the plagues of modern living is, I think, always being contactable, and I don't think that's always a good thing. Me and my partner are off to Wales for a few days next week. One of the things I like about Wales, aside from the beautiful mountains and the amazing landscape, and I have to say, really good food as well. I've very rarely had a bad meal when I've been in Wales. But one of the things I like are those wonderful moments when you climb a hill or go into a valley and your mobile phone tells you there is no network. Absolutely marvellous. Finally off the grid. No one can bother you and you can't bother anybody else. Let's have a slight sweep of this field. I do like standing in wheat fields. And it's going to be a constant gripe in the back of my mind today. You know what I'm going to say? I should have brought my stills cameras with me. They're absolutely gorgeous. It's good for the soul. Excuse me. Now, normally when I've walked this route, traditionally and historically, I've normally started in Cubbington. I've normally walked across the road to Cubbington, gone through a little cut through, and literally come across the fields and through and back into Leamington. So it's a little more interesting for me today to be reverse engineering it. If this is your first time watching this, that's not really going to have a bearing, but hopefully it will encourage you to get out and about. As I said, if you're a Leamington local, these routes are freely available to you. Do avail yourself if you have some free time. Most of the routes are signposted, as you can see, and we'll look out for something like that, not tell you that you're on the right trail. But a lot of the time, though traffic along these routes isn't high, it is enough that you can see that trails do kind of get naturally etched into the landscape merely by footfall. I've been advised that when you see trails like this across fields or across verges, particularly in towns and built up areas, that the correct name for them is desire paths, and it's obviously where people wish there was an official path because that's the route they are taking across the fields. However, I think it would be absolutely appalling to have this paved in any way. I think some desire paths should stay as desire paths and should not end up being properly maintained paths. I am just waffling there. Don't know whether the camera picked that up, the microphone rather, but there is a horse whinnying very loudly somewhere in the next field behind those trees. So you can see some woods ahead of us to the right of the path that we're taking. They do have a name, and that name escapes me. So provided I've done a bit of homework when I've got home and I'm editing this video, that name should be appearing at the bottom of the screen. You can have a wander through these woods. There doesn't seem to be any prohibition say that you can't. These fields I've always assumed are private, but they don't seem to be. This doesn't seem to be a crop field anyway. I don't know whether you can see the pylon in the distance over there. That is the top of the Campion Hill on that pylon. So that's kind of the edge of Lillington. So Lillington kind of sprawls that way, and then Cubbington is sort of over in that direction. Ahead of us, although you can't see it because it's the other side of the hedge, so you can see, or you might better see bits of glimpses of traffic. There you go. That is Welsh Road, and if you're driving, you can head towards the right along Welsh Road, and that will take you into Offchurch village. Offchurch is off in that direction, or you can drive towards the left, and that will also take you to Cubbington, and you'll actually end up going up Windmill Hill. So named, I'm assuming, because there used to be a windmill there. It's not there anymore, alas. Warwickshire's lost a lot of its windmills. There used to be a windmill in Whitnash, just outside Leamington Spa. I think that's commemorated now by the windmill pub. The only windmill in terms of structure, an actual windmill that I'm aware of, is Chesterton. I need to make a note of that because that's possibly a good subject for a future video. Time was years ago. It was still a working windmill. I can certainly remember having a school trip there and being allowed up inside to see all the cogs and how it was working. I don't think it works anymore, sadly, which is a great shame, although it is maintained. I know the sails were taken down, I think last year or maybe the year before, to have some repairs done on them. So someone is certainly looking after it. So these hedgerows on a good hot summer's day are a great place for butterflies. And there was a memorable occasion a couple of years ago where I saw one of the biggest dragonflies that I've ever seen just hanging down from one of the branches. And he seemed to be asleep. I believe it's called a state of torpor, and I was able to get quite a few photos of him. It's never happened since, and I love trying to photograph dragonflies, but they are not the most accommodating of subjects. So as you can see, the trail now bears to the left, so just follow it. When I was a kid, I'm sure there is a way to get onto the road there, that's Welsh Road, but it might mean heading across that field and then off to the right and clambering through some hedges, but there is a way to get onto the road should you need to do that in an emergency. I'm not sure what kind of emergency would require you to do that. But for now, no emergencies on my mind, we will just follow the trail this way. As I said, the woods do look rather inviting to me. I do like being enclosed in spaces that have lots of trees. Walking through woods and forests is definitely my happy place. And I consider myself very, very fortunate to have a partner who absolutely loves it as well. But I've wandered a lot of these places on my own before I met my partner as well. So if you're a lone walker, fill your boots, I say. Come out, get out and about, get some fresh air. Surround yourself with green living things and nature, and I guarantee you will start to feel better, you'll start to feel more calm, you'll start to feel more centred. I really do like to big up the therapeutic effects of walking out in the countryside, or even just being outside. And I hope that wherever you are watching this video from, firstly, thank you very much for watching, but I do hope that there is somewhere near you, even if it's only a local park, where you can get out and just enjoy being outside. Put your phone down, put your PlayStation away, even if it's only for 30 minutes, and just get outside. I appreciate when it's a heat wave, that's sometimes the last thing you want to do, but you know, first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening, these are great times to be out and about. Every photographer knows this already, because you get blue hour and what they call golden hour, when the light is absolutely amazing and you can take beautiful photographs at this time. So at the moment it's all very, very grey and we're getting rather a diffuse light. As you can see, I'm not having to point out the way. It's there in front of you, you just follow the trail. If you're a fan of foraging for wild food, there's usually lots of wild garlic in this field. Certainly the smell coming from some of the wildflowers around me is absolutely amazing. I can hear lots of grasshoppers chirruping away to my right in this longer grass. In fact, I feel like I'm surrounded by grasshoppers who are probably all eyeballing me. They're quite hard to spot, I have to say. Getting a photograph of one on Sunday felt like a little bit of an achievement. You kind of have to stand or sit very, very still and kind of initially hone in your hearing to try and find their location, and then it is a case of looking very, very closely at the grass and just looking out for that tiny little bit of movement. Grasshoppers in the UK tend to be quite small, but if you keep your wits about you, you can spot them. But I'm not going to attempt to do that today, because we could be here a good 20 minutes trying to do that. even with everywhere looking rather yellow and parched because of the heat wave, I do think nevertheless it's still a beautiful landscape to be out and about in. So it's been about half an hour, it's been about 30 minutes since we set off from Whitebridge, and we've already covered quite a bit of the distance to Cubbington. Lots of wood pigeons about. I don't know whether you can see it, I think there is a kestrel. Oh, let's get the, see whether that will zoom in. Don't know whether the camera will pick it up, but on the screen I can't quite see it, but between those two trees, just above that, the horizon that you can see, there is a bird hovering. That is, it's just gone down. That I think is a kestrel, sometimes called a wind hover. I believe there's also a third name which employs the use of an expletive, but I've been told is also a traditional country name for a kestrel as well, but I won't say that on this channel. You never know, I might get the opportunity to be monetized one day. I don't know how often you're allowed to swear on these things. I've got another channel that I'm kind of working on at the moment, though it's yet to be published, where I probably will be swearing quite a little bit, where I'm talking about my pre-diabetes experience in a little bit more detail. But that's not been made public yet on YouTube, but I will certainly flag it up when it does. Wow, so there is Eden Courts Flats. There is an opportunity to walk across this field at some point and take a more direct route to those, and that will take you straight into the heart of Leamington. Should have brought my cameras. This would get just the difference in tone from this field is amazing. The way the light and the dark is, that would make a great photo. The reason I've kind of chosen not to bring my cameras with me today is a practical reason, because I know what I'm like. I would do this walk in good time. I would head back, start taking photos, and before I knew it, I'd be 2 hours late for where I need to be. Don't know whether the camera's going to get this. I'm hoping he's not dead. No, he's not. I'm having to step carefully because he seems to be determined to sit in the path. But anyway, he will leave him to his business. So when you're out walking, always try and look where you're going. Keep your eyes out. It's very easy to spot larger animals like, you know, the ruminants, sheep and cows and horses. But do watch where you are treading, particularly at this time of year. Spring, summer and through autumn as well. There is a lot of insect life about. And I'm very minded that they have as much right to live and lead their lives as I do. So I try not to cause any damage through ignorance or through being unobservant. I'm not a butterfly expert, but I will see if I can identify that butterfly once I'm back home editing this video, and if I'm successful I will put its name up at the bottom of the screen, which I may already have done so. Again, lovely vista here. That field ahead is a beautiful colour. So although it feels like we're in the middle of the countryside at this point, we are actually not far from civilization. So you can see Eden Court Flats poking out between those two trees, and to the right there is also houses there that I think they front onto the Cubbington Road. And if you were walking from Leamington, taking the town route to Cubbington, you would be walking on the other side of those houses along the main road there. I think the route we've taken today is far more picturesque and far better for the soul, and also cooler as well. Don't underestimate during heat waves just how much excess heat is thrown up by concrete, by pavement, by buildings around you. If you walk out into the countryside, it is generally a couple of degrees lower. You might not think a couple of degrees make a vast amount of difference, but it does. Being out in a landscape like this, you know, everything here is absorbing the heat rather than throwing it back out at you. And there's far more shade as well in areas like this. And also because it's open and it's a little bit hilly, there's some nice breezes coming down as well. So we're kind of at a nexus point here. I think there's at least 2, maybe 3 routes you can take now to get to Cubbington. Now, Cubbington is essentially ahead of us, other side of the fields. You can head this way, as you can see. There's this area demarked here, and you just follow the trail through. There are some warehouses there which you can just keep to your left and keep walking. You can also, I've seen people kind of follow the trail this way, which is not quite clearly demarked, but you can sort of head that way, keeping to the boundaries of the fields. A route that I very often take is along here and up that way. Oh, I wish I'd brought my camera. Look at this. If you're looking at this and can't see the beauty in it, then I'm going to venture that my channel is not for you. This is absolutely stunning. Just the texture of this field in the wind and the colour. Absolutely incredible. As you can see, we're getting closer to the flats. Once we're through this field, I can point out a route to you. Again, that is a public right of way that will take you to the rear of Eden Court Flats, should you wish to go there. I have no wish to go there, and I will leave it at that. Ooh. Now, are they swallows or martins? I'm assuming martins would have a nest on a wall somewhere, so could they be swallows or swifts? Always happy to see those across the field, so that they'll be gathering insects as they go. Just in a little butterfly go. Hopefully he won't end up as a meal for a swift. I can't quite work out this year whether it's been a good year for butterflies or not. I'm going to venture that it's a bit of an average year in terms of butterfly yield. Now, I've got to remember now where I go from here. I don't usually reverse engineer this route. In my mind, I used to come from up there, but there doesn't seem to be a way through there. There is, however, a little walk through here, so I'm assuming that this is it. Yeah, this is probably it. Yes, this is it. It's always weird how when you're reverse engineering stuff or taking a backwards route, how different everywhere looks. So, Eden Courts Flats right in front of us. I believe you can head that way, follow the trail that's kind of been parted through the foliage, and at some point it will bear towards the left, and you kind of keep that row of trees and hedgerows to your right, and at some point there will be an access point, and you may just have to push yourself through some brambles at some point to get there. Last time I went that route, it wasn't being particularly well maintained, but to my mind it is a public access and a public right of way. So a little blackbird just ahead of us, just flown off. So we're now approaching 45 minutes in. So for me, that's a decent length for a walk. It'll probably take us another 10 minutes before I end the video. Obviously, you have to factor in that I've now got to go back to my car, which is parked at Newbold, so that's another 15-minute walk back again. But this is all part of the planning of walking, really. If you don't have a vehicle that you need to get to, once you're in Cubbington or Leamington as well, there are plenty of places to stop off and get refreshments. There's a pretty decent bus route as well along the Cubbington Road if you want to head back into Leamington, or if you really like walking like I do, just walk back. Again, a gorgeous field to my left. I can smell the crops as well. There's a real earthy, comforting, warm smell emanating from all around me at the moment. There's also some long grass on my right, which I'm currently running my hand through, like Maximus Decimus. Remember that what our actions in life echo through eternity, something like that. Who knows, maybe if YouTube is still around in 100 years, or it's been transformed into another platform, and all these videos that people in the 21st century have been producing are still there could be people in 100 years time watching this. I wonder what kind of world you'll be living in, whether you'll still have green open spaces like this, whether there will still be the ability to grow things in this landscape. Let's hope so. So the houses you can see over there, that's Cubbington. The warehouses there, I want to say it's Thwaite, but I'm not entirely sure. I may have to confirm that at the bottom of the screen once I'm back home editing. Houses this way, as I said, that's Leamington. They kind of denote the line of Cubbington Road, which runs on the other side of those. Roughly speaking, I think some of these might be Parklands Avenue that kind of run off Cubbington Road, but certainly Cubbington Road runs in that direction. And we will continue down here. I'm pretty certain at this point it's more or less a straight route now. It just goes down to the dip in this field, up into the next one, keeping to the right of the field, but to the left of the trees. just stepped over some dog poo. Please clean up after yourselves. I know this is in the middle of the country. There seems to be this acceptance that if you're in town, absolutely clean up after yourself, and then people let their dogs out into the country and think, no, we will just let them poo anywhere. So this is another route as well. So you can head this way and then bear right, and that will join you up again, literally maybe one field's worth that way. That will join you back up with the route that we have just taken. So there are lots of little cross routes that you can make as well. But for now, we're going to head up here. Yeah, and also if you are picking up after your dog, which is, I mean, great if you are, absolutely, but we really don't want to see plastic bags of dog poo hung in the hedgerows. That is just vile and makes me really, really cross. I believe, and I only learnt this at the weekend, that if you see a plastic bag hung up in a tree, they are known as witches' knickers, which is something that I didn't know, and which amuses me greatly. So there's a little bit of a gangplank to walk here. I dare say a much easier route probably would have been to go in that field and come up that way, but I've come this way now. So I hope that looked as spectacular as it felt. So here we are, and again a different type of field, different colour, but rather spectacular. Yeah, so I think normally when I come the other way, I would come through this field here rather than cutting through there. The gangplank is navigable. Hopefully you'll do it far more elegantly than I did. Although I felt like a gazelle just for a moment, landed like an elephant. But normally go through this field, follow it along, keeping that green hedge to your right, and then there's a cut through on the right as well, and you just head that way, and that will take you back past that route where we were looking at the woods. All very easy. It's quite difficult to get lost because you are surrounded by town and village on your left and your right. So this is a nice route if you're kind of new to rambling, walking, and you don't want to risk going miles and miles out of your way then getting lost. It's impossible to do that on this route. Please don't see that as a challenge. Although if you do walk this route and you found yourself absolutely lost, do drop me a comment, because I'd like to know how you did it. So a bit of a climb. As I said, normally I come the other way down, so this is all usually a very welcome descent. But for today, I'm trying to get a little bit of exercise and give my lungs a bit of a workout. Otherwise, I'm in danger of becoming permanently sedentary. So at the moment it's still quite cool. As a guesstimate, I'd put it at around 21 degrees, which is a nice walking temperature. Cloud cover is making it a little bit humid. But this time last week, we were hitting temperatures above 30 degrees in Warwickshire, and that definitely was not good weather for walking, which always feels frustrating. It's bad enough not being able to go out on walks when it's hissing down with rain, but when it's actually the sun's out and then it's too hot to go out for a walk, that seems doubly frustrating to my mind, because everywhere looks amazing. But you also have to appreciate walking out for miles and miles and miles in temperatures that are late 20s, early 30s, if you are unprepared and you haven't brought enough water with you, you can't get to shade easily, you are actually putting yourself in danger. As much as I love walking, and I do love walking, you do have to be responsible when you are doing it, as with anything really in life. Always be mindful of yourself, mindful of the environment, mindful of others. If you do that, you can't go far wrong. Fantastic view, and that would make a really good photo. I think the notion of me leaving my cameras at home because I take too many photos is probably not the solution, is it? The solution is be a little bit more disciplined, Steve, and don't take quite so many photos. Be a little bit choosy, but you know what it's like. You're out and about, you see stuff, click, 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 and then you get into the zone, and before you know it, you've racked up 100 photos. Obviously, back in the days of photographic film, that would have been slightly more difficult to achieve unless you'd spent out and you'd bought several rolls of 24 or 36 exposures. But you tended to be a bit more choosy in those days and a little bit more careful. I think digital cameras do kind of allow you that flexibility and that wriggle room, if you like, just to take a chance on photo. Sorry, just blowing a little thunderbug off my glasses. You can take lots of photos knowing that you can delete them. And sometimes it is the photos that you've taken a chance on. Sorry, that thunderbug is very persistent. Sometimes it's the photos that you've taken a chance on that you weren't sure whether they were going to work or not. When you get them back home, look at them on the computer, sometimes they can be the ones that have made the walk worthwhile. And conversely, sometimes the photos that you've been deliberate about, that you've deliberated and cogitated over, sometimes they don't work out as well as you thought they were going to. Sometimes they do though. So we're nearing the end of our walk now. I think you can zip through this field. There's also a cut through further down there. In fact, let's go for the cut through. I kind of like to refresh myself of these routes. I haven't walked this route, I think, since last year, which makes me feel really remiss and a little bit sad, because this is one of my favourite routes. Back even before I started recording videos for the channel, here you go, this was the walk that I would make anyway, just to take photos or just for a bit of peace of mind. And that lady's come out very nicely from where we're going to go to. Morning. I have to say, my first thought was, am I going to have to edit that song out in case I get a copyright strike? But then I recognised it. It's actually the waiting tune that a lot of companies play you when you're waiting in a call queue.
Thank you.
I've certainly experienced it when I've been trying to call Virgin Media. I think also Severn Trent as well. And it is the most soul-destroying song you will hear. Aesthetically, it sounds quite jolly and upbeat, but it's one of those things you associate it with just being kept on hold for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, waiting for someone to answer the phone, and usually then put you straight away into another queue depending on what you said to them. I hardly call that customer service. Okay, so we're nearing the end of the walk now. The houses you can see around us are Cubbington, so we are now in Cubbington. We're just coming up to what I call the entry point, if you like, from the town into this bit of countryside. I do often wonder, you know, for people who don't go on these walks, who kind of live over in the town and the villages, do some people just look at fields and don't feel that sense of wanderlust? Because for me, I find that unfathomable. If I see a field, even if I'm out driving, there is a part of me that wants to stop the car and get out and go and have a wander. And that's something that I've always felt as a kid. I'm lucky that, you know, I had a grandparent, my nan, who absolutely loved walking out in the country and would take us out on walks as well. So from an early age, I've kind of been indoctrinated, I think, into enjoying this type of activity. But I'm aware that some people don't. Some people don't go out on walks. Some people would scoff at the idea and wonder what was the point. Hopefully, if you stuck with this video to the end and you've had an appreciation for the landscape and the simple beauty of an English field in the summertime, hopefully you've already answered that question for yourself in terms of what is the point. The point is it makes you feel better, it makes you glad to be alive, and it's healthy physically and emotionally. So you can head down here. That will take you onto some of the fields that we've passed. You virtually head in that direction, follow the trails, and you can go all the way back to Leamington, back to Whitebridge, onto Offchurch if you so wish. The entry point from the town is just up here. In my head, I wasn't going to make it this far today, but as is usual for me, once I start doing a walk, I just think, oh, I'll just go another 5 minutes, go a little bit longer. And so here we are. I've actually ended up in Cubbington anyway, rather than just part of the way there. How are we looking? An hour. So this is an hour-long video of me waffling away. Hopefully that's not been too distracting. Hopefully it's been interesting and a little bit informative. You can see the main road ahead of us with traffic going past. I'll just give you a sneak peek of that, so you can kind of see where we are. And I believe there's a Sainsbury's local not far away from this point as well. So if you have made the walk following this way around, and by this point you're desperate for a cold drink or just somewhere on a hot day that has air conditioning, Sainsbury's local is your place. So as you can see, there's a little gate here, takes you out onto the main road. So where that traffic light is, if you cross there, that is, I believe, the Rugby Tavern. That's the kind of the car park just to the right of that traffic light, and then to the right of the Rugby Tavern is Sainsbury's local. In fact, why don't I just show you? That way takes you further on into Cubbington village. Heading back this way, following the road, will take you back into Leamington, and from there, of course, you can continue walking all the way back to Leamington Spa town centre. There's also some shops on the left, as you can see. Cubbington Cafe. You can get a nice libation there. There's also, is that a cost cutter or something? There's also a newsagent there. Rugby Tavern here, so there you go. They do very nice meals if you'd rather have somewhere sat down, and Sainsbury's local as well. Great place to get an ice cream on a hot day. Before I had my pre-diabetes diagnosis, I would often get myself an ice cream. I now still eat ice cream, but far less frequently, and it is more as a treat that I then have to balance with my other nutritional intake. So there we go. So that was Whitebridge all the way to Cubbington village. I'm now going to head back again as I've parked my car on Newbold Comyn in the car park there. So I've got a good 15-minute walk ahead of me. But as I haven't brought my cameras today, it will just be a 15-minute walk. I guarantee if I had brought my cameras with me, you could essentially double the amount of length of time it would take me to get back to my car. And I really don't have that time to spare today. So thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Warwickshire Walks and Beyond. If you haven't already subscribed, then please do. That massively helps the channel. I can't express just how much that helps my channel grow if you subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to watch every video, but just the fact that you are subscribed is a massive help and enables me to continue making videos. Also, if you have liked this video, absolutely hit the like button. Feel free to leave a comment. If you know this area well, if there are hidden gems that I've missed along the route that you want to point out to me, that would be most welcome. If you've just liked it and want to say hello and thank you, please do that. If you have any questions, again, please do ask away. I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm happy to do a little bit of research if it's a genuine question about the walk or the history of the area. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's mostly been my voice. I'm never sure just how much you want to see of my face. As I've said on previous videos, in my head it's as less as possible. But hopefully you've enjoyed the vistas and some of the things we've seen. Look after yourselves, and I will hopefully see you on the next walk. Thank you for watching.